It's another edition of Inside Town Hall. I'm Jim Cameron, your host of this program and program director of this TV station. And this is a show where we interview folks who work in town hall, who make town government work so well. And our guest today on the program is Krista McNamara. She is the town clerk. Welcome to Inside Town Hall, where you are, and virtually where I am as well, too. Good to have you on the show.
Thanks so much, Jim. It's a pleasure to be here.
Excellent. Great. So before we talk about your duties as town clerk, let's talk a little bit about your background. I see that you used to work at Bloomberg as a reporter to start off with, and then did some sales as well, too.
That's correct. Yes, I joined Michael Bloomberg when he was just building his news division. I was the first municipal bond reporter for Bloomberg News and probably the 10th reporter hired. So it was an exciting time. And then, as you mentioned, I moved into the sales division, selling the Bloomberg terminal to financial advisors, corporations all over the country.
Great. How long have you lived in Darien?
My husband and I have been here since 2002. I grew up in a town very similar to Darien. I grew up in Rye, New York, just over the border. And we've raised our 3 children here. We have freshmen in college and twin boys at Darien High School.
And you joined the RTM. What prompted you to do that?
Once I had started my family, I had stayed at home and started to volunteer first in the schools as PTO. And then I really wanted to get more involved with learning more about the town, its workings. And the RTM really was a fabulous way to be introduced to so many aspects of town government. I petitioned on, I collected my 25 signatures, which enabled me to appear on the ballot, and ran and served on the RTM from 2007 to 2013.
And you're now the official clerk of the RTM, which we'll talk about as well, too.
Correct.
But you migrated from the RTM to the Board of Education, which was an elected position.
Yes.
And you served there for 6 years.
Correct. 2 terms, which is the 6 years.
And then stepped up to the Board of Selectmen.
Correct.
And you were there for, I think, about a year and a half.
Yes.
What prompted you to transition from the Board of Selectmen to this job as town clerk?
Well, the position became available, and that doesn't happen very often. Town clerks tend to hold on to their seats for quite a while. Our 2 prior clerks, Tana Rajeski, had held the position for almost 20 years. So when it came up, I thought it was an interesting opportunity to learn more about the operational side of town business. I had always been on the policy side, both from the Board of Selectmen and Board of Ed. So it gave me the opportunity to kind of get back into the workforce to learn more now about the operational aspect of town hall. And so now I am in the 2nd year of my 2-year term.
And how big is the town clerk's office? How big is the staff?
It's a staff of 4 people, myself and 3 other women, fabulous women who work here.
And you're responsible for just a huge long list of paperwork, et cetera, et cetera. So let's talk a little bit about that. First of all, vital records. If I want a birth certificate and I was born in Darien, I come to see you, right?
Correct.
You also keep a record of deaths.
Correct. So, vital records, your birth certificate, your death, and marriage licenses all fall under the umbrella of vital statistics, which are stored here in our vault, and one may access depending upon your authorization.
Right. And for a while, when same-sex marriage was available in Connecticut, but not in neighboring states, Connecticut was doing quite a land office business with people coming up to get marriage licenses in Darien. And very often I would see people holding marriage ceremonies in the auditorium.
Yes, well, we get people from truly all over the tri-state area who come to Darien. Sometimes they think it's a little bit like Sex in the City. They can just walk in their dress and get married here, but it doesn't exactly work that way. They can come here to get their license. their marriage license, and then they have to procure an officiant, either a justice of the peace, of which Darien has 30 per our town charter, or they may get their own. They have a license for 65 days. They must get married in that time window in the confines of Darien, and then the officiant returns it to us. But you're right, civil unions had been the option for same-sex couples. The state of Connecticut changed that and then converted all same-sex into actually marriage licenses. I think that was in 2010, correct? 2010. So now all of our paperwork is appropriately updated to spouse one, spouse two, to recognize the options.
You mentioned the town charter.
Mhm.
And I think there are a lot of folks who may be new to town that don't understand what the town charter is versus town ordinances. What is the town charter?
So the town charter, I'll say, is the town code, is our workings of operation of how Darien is organized, how our government works. It's found on the town website. It talks about who will officiate. We will have a selectman, and for how long will that selectman serve? We will have a board of selectmen, and for how many people will serve on that body. So it has all the regulations, and then it goes into, circling back in Appendix B, the operations for the representative town meeting, the RTM, which is our legislative body. So there's a lot of really interesting information in there. I recommend every resident take a look at it.
And our town charter is perhaps different than our neighbors, other towns and cities?
Correct. Yes. We have 169 municipalities in Connecticut. I don't know how many exactly operate by town charter, but yes, Darien does.
And Darien has a representative town meeting, the RTM.
Mhm.
Many towns do not.
Correct. Greenwich has a representative town meeting of 200 people. Darien's body has 100 people. A few others, Berlin may, but again, only a handful operate with their legislative body as an RTM. New Canaan does not, for example.
Well, as we're talking about the RTM, let's do a little primer
sure.
on that body as well too.
Mhm.
It's the town's legislative body, and has 100 members. How do people get on the RTM?
Okay. So if you're interested in getting involved, like I was back in 2007, Darien is broken into 6 districts. You can think of us as there are 6 congressional districts. You obtained a petition, you collect 25 signatures from electors in your respective districts, and you submit that 6 weeks before the election, and your name would appear on the ballot. Once on the RTM, if you are elected in that case, you serve a 2-year term. Once you're on the RTM, it's just a matter of letting me know as town clerk that you'd like to re-up, and then your name would appear on the ballot again to serve a subsequent 2-year term. So amongst the 6 districts, they're divided by percentage of population. So right now we see District 5, for example, growing and having more representation because they are more like the California of our legislative body, where other districts are more like the Rhode Island. It's not quite that disparate, but that's the direction we're going.
And do you have to reapportion the districts if the population gets out of whack like that?
Every year, right before 40 days before the election, again, per charter, I find out what is the population of electors in Darien from the Register of Voters. I look at that full population and figure out how many people are in each district, and that's the allocation of representatives. So for example, District 5 had 18% of the electors of Darien 40 days before the November election. So they get 14 representatives. I'm sorry, 18 representatives.
And there's another way to get on the RTM after the election if there are vacancies. Let's talk about caucusing.
Sure. So if, as we saw this year, if there are more openings than there are candidates after the election, an individual can caucus on. And in that case, the district chair and I will try to spread the word that there's an opening. The candidates submit their resumes to the district chair. The district members meet, they interview, and then an individual may be caucused on. In that case, you serve for 1 year till the next municipal election.
Mhm. And full disclosure, I'm a member of the RTM. I
Yep.
have been for
Yep.
over 20 years in District 4. The RTM also works through a number of committees.
Correct.
And how are people appointed to various committees?
So the RTM is run, or we have a moderator, and the moderator is in charge of what's called the Rules Committee. The Rules Committee is comprised of 2 representatives from each of the respective 6 districts. So a 12-person body with 1 moderator. That body meets and then apportions the rest of their membership to one of the 7 standing committees of the RTM, based upon people's interests, experience, and longevity on the RTM.
And when an issue comes before the RTM, I'll pick up part of the description because I know the process.
Yeah.
When an issue comes before the RTM, perhaps referred by the Board of Selectmen or the Board of Finance, the Rules Committee sets it as an agenda item for an upcoming meeting and says, this item is going to be examined by, let's say, the Education Committee and Finance and Budget Committee, because there are aspects of that issue that those experts on those committees, small experts, are best equipped to handle. And those committees then meet and they discuss the proposal. They bring in town officials, et cetera, to explain them. And then when the RTM meets and the issue comes up on the agenda, the committees get to report to the full body, so to speak.
Correct.
And they have their recommendations. And sometimes the committees agree and sometimes they don't.
Correct.
The RTM as a whole, I think, again, speaking from my experience, seem to rely on the committees and the diligence that they put into examining a particular issue and the advice that they give the organization as a whole. Is that a fair description of the process?
I think that's very fair description of the process. But for any RTM member, or I should say any member of the public who wants to sort of follow an issue from its nascent, can really attend any of those subcommittee meetings. You don't have to wait until that full RTM committee meeting to which you refer when it's reported out. Any member of the public or another RTM member can appear at those subcommittee meetings to really get that firsthand presentation, discussion, to hear how the conversation evolves until that final report. And I encourage people to try to get in on the beginning of issues. So often it's hard when it's at the end. And I think we saw maybe a little bit of that recently, where people are busy, I totally understand, but I want to encourage all these viewers that these meetings are open to the public. The agendas are posted. There are videos, Channel 70, TV 79, videotapes that there's a lot going on. So people there's no reason not to be informed these days.
Krista McNamara, our guest inside Town Hall today. She is the town clerk. And you have made a perfect segue into what I would like to discuss next, because there are a lot of newcomers in town who maybe they read about something or they hear about something or they see something in social media and they go, how come nobody ever told me that the town was going to do X, Y, or Z? How do people find out what's going on in their town government?
Okay, well, in this day and age, I think we are blessed because we have the internet. So right now on the website, darien-ct.gov, all meeting schedules are posted, all agendas then get posted, and then minutes get posted. Before we had the internet, people would have to come into the town clerk's office because all that information is housed with the town clerk. That's why the town clerk is one of the oldest positions of town government, going back to the 1600s. Even the scribes before that in ancient Egypt, we were the collectors of the town business. Now it's on the internet. So you can go look at the town calendar, see what meetings are interesting to you, and then tune into TV 79 and watch those proceedings. So you can follow these steps, issues every step of the way.
So if there's an issue that people are interested in and they see that, let's say the education committee of the RTM is going to be having a meeting, they're allowed to attend, as you say.
Correct.
Are they allowed to speak and offer their opinions or ask questions?
That would depend upon the discretion of the committee chair. Public comment is public comment. That these are meetings of these bodies. And this was an interesting point when I served on the Board of Education. When I began in 2013, we didn't have public comment because these were meetings of the Board of Education. We invited the public, but it became very apparent very quickly that we needed a forum in which to hear from people. And so typically 3 minutes is appropriate. So I would, if I was attending a meeting as a member of the public, I would look at the agenda and to confirm if there was public comment. If not, speak to the committee chair to confirm. So there should be no assumption unless you see it on an agenda.
If I can offer an editorial opinion, this is one of the things that I love about small town government, that, if you live in the city, the city's going to do X or Y or Z, and you just kind of have to deal with it. But in a town of this size, there is ample opportunity to participate in those decision-making processes. And Board of Education, I think, is a great example. Public comment at the Board of Education sometimes can run to half of the meeting.
It has. Thinking back 10 years ago, it didn't exist to where it is now. True.
But nobody can say, I didn't have a chance to be heard.
I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, I think the Board of Education is a great example, as are many of the other committees, where there is ample opportunity for everybody in town to have their say. That board may not vote the way you want.
True.
But, at least you were heard,
Very much so. And then the contact information, for example, the RTM, all the phone numbers and physical addresses of every member are online on our website. We have an email address for the RTM, DarienRTM@DarienCT.gov. So there are ways to which you can reach an elected official, even if you're not comfortable appearing in public comment, just to give that other opportunity.
Here's a question you're not going to like.
Okay.
The members of the RTM or the boards and commissions, their names are on the website.
Correct.
Sometimes their phone numbers or addresses are there, but only rarely are their email addresses there. Why is that? Why can't you or we use the website to find the email address and, fire off a note to our representative on the RTM or the chairman of X, Y, and Z committee?
That is at the discretion of each body. I personally agree. I would love to see every member of the RTM have a town email address that is posted on the website. That is sort of a goal of mine, slowly working toward it. But I think in this day and age, email is the communication of choice. And but other boards do have it, or they might have the planning and zoning, for example, has an email address. But I also want to make a note here. If there is a group email address for a body, you always have to make sure that the body does not start communicating over group email. So sort of segueing into another topic, but it is important that communication work of that body must appear in public. It cannot appear and be held over email. So that perhaps is one thing we have to be careful about with email. Blessing and curse.
Right. Well, once again, you have segued perfectly into what I wanted to discuss next, which is, as Krista McNamara, our guest today on Inside Town Hall, she's the town clerk. Unofficial title that you have is also Guardian of the Freedom of Information Act. You are the cop of the Freedom of Information Act who keeps all of us honest. what is the Freedom of Information Act? And then let's talk about how it facilitates participation in town government.
Well, the Freedom of Information Act, I became very familiar with actually when I was serving on the Board of Education, because it's just the broad concept is that the workings of government is available to the public. The government cannot work except in certain situations. Those conversations are held during executive session, which tend to deal with personnel, contracts. Again,
real estate transactions.
Real estate. I have to refer to town council for that. But yeah, contracts, whether it's a personnel contract, a real estate contract. Other than that, the workings of the body have to be done in public. And so the Freedom of Information Act enables the public to have access to this information. There is a commission that sits in Hartford. Tom Hennick has been the public liaison, and I'd love to get him down to Darien to speak to our various bodies, because there's so many nuances that I couldn't even do justice completely to. But the ability that we need to make sure our information is out there so we can get inquiries they're looking for around election time. They want to know who has done an absentee ballot, things like that, that we have to make sure the information is public. And
this is a state law.
Correct.
That is a result, I think, going back to the sunshine laws after Watergate period, et cetera, et cetera. But let's talk about how the rubber meets the road under the Freedom of Information Act. If a board or commission wants to hold a meeting, how much notice do they have to give of that meeting?
So a regular meeting must be posted 7 days in advance. The agenda has to be available at least 24 hours in advance. The voting record must be publicized within 2 days, and then the minutes of the meeting should be within 7 days after that, referring to my cheat sheet, correct?
And this is all information that's then posted on the town
Correct.
website.
Correct.
Right. So if there's an issue you're following, and let's say go back to the education committee, the RTM, you would know that there's an education committee meeting coming up. The agenda would be there, so you could look at it. You could attend it, and if the chair allows, you could have public comment. You could then watch it on TV 79, the whole Megillah. And if you wanted to read the minutes and get a summary of what happened at the meeting, the redacted version, or not redacted, condensed version. Yeah. You could find that there also as well too.
Yep.
So those are regularly scheduled meetings. What's a special meeting?
A special meeting, an issue comes up unexpected. There's a flood, there's a storm. For example, the first selectman needs to gather the Board of Selectmen to do something. That would be held with a 24-hour meeting notice. Again, that's filed with the town clerk and put onto the website. And in this case, the contents of the agenda are specified. As I mentioned, the agenda gets stated. And then when the body meets, they must stick to that agenda. They cannot then start talking about other issues other than the reason as to what they stated for that special meeting. So it's very specific and unique to the topic at hand.
But again, the agenda has to be posted, the minutes, any voting records, et cetera, et cetera.
Correct.
Virtual meetings versus in-person meetings versus hybrid meetings. The bane of my existence, hybrid meetings.
Yes.
We started doing virtual meetings during COVID. Are they still allowed?
Yes. Virtual meetings are still allowed, but they still follow the same agenda, minutes, posting, the same method, but they're still allowed, correct?
Right. And do we anticipate, or I guess this is up to the legislature, but do we anticipate any change in that, or has this technology now proven so participative and engaging that this is one of the things that I think will stay with us for a while. Is that fair?
I think that is fair. I mean, for example, today it enabled us to meet in a much more efficient way, arguably, with weather. We live in the Northeast. My personal opinion, I do feel it's more conducive to smaller bodies. I do worry when it becomes a large body on a virtual setting where you lose that personal touch, the ability to see the participants, where it's just the speaker, for example, on the screen. So I love the idea that the RTM has moved back into person, whereas the subcommittees, again, with a smaller body, can do that virtually. But we do see both. Hybrids, we do not do a hybrid meeting for the RTM, for example. That is as much because of a technology constraints as anything else.
And is the public allowed to attend a virtual meeting and or make public comment?
Again, with the public comment at the discretion of the chair, but absolutely, if there is a meeting and it is offered in any type of remote setting, that access must be provided to the public.
One of the other things that the Freedom of Information Act refers to is what is a meeting. So if you have a five-member board, let's say, and three of those people get together to have lunch,
okay,
is that a meeting?
If they get together to have lunch and they're going to talk about the Giants and football, it is not a meeting.
It won't be a good lunch.
Again, I'm just picking some team out of the hat. If they're, going to talk about the latest streaming series on Netflix, it is not a meeting. The minute they start talking about town business, then it is a meeting, correct? But
so even if it's a social gathering, they have to be very careful about not participating in the business of their committee.
Correct. They cannot start talking about anything that would relate to the charge of the body to which all three participants are members. They have to stay away from that topic. Now, though there's a difference, what's called a caucus. So a body, this related more into the, I'll say the Board of Ed from my experience there. If all the members of the Democratic Party wanted to gather, and we see this, of course, in Hartford, we see this in Washington, those members may gather and talk about the business at hand, but they are members of a similar political party, which enables them to meet without the same meeting disclosure, and same Republicans similarly. That's called a caucus, and that's different.
But let's take the flip side of that, which is, let's say the Republican members of a body all get together. The Republicans are, by definition in this town, the majority appointees to a board or commission.
Correct.
And if they decide to caucus and have in effect, a quorum of that body,
yes.
There have been discussions about whether that's a meeting or not. And you're saying if it's a caucus, it's not a meeting.
According to town council, it is not a meeting.
Okay. And let's talk about minority representation. A 5-person board, let's take the Board of Selectmen.
Right.
We have a Republican first select woman.
Correct.
We have 2 other Republicans that are on the body as elected, and we have 2 Democrats.
Correct.
Why are there 3 Republicans and only 2 Democrats?
With a body of 5, minority representation states that no more than 4 may be of the same party. So
there's always a chance for the minority party to be represented on a body or a commission.
In the state of Connecticut, based upon registration, political registration, Connecticut has 2 major parties, we'll say the Republican and the Democrat. And then we have minor, the Green Party, the Independent Party, et cetera. But yes. So,
and there's also this thing called unaffiliated. But
unaffiliated, which is
I don't
very
want to touch on the registrar of voters responsibilities, but
well, that's an important. Since we can get it out there. If anyone watching this feels that they don't identify or do not want to go with either of our major parties, please choose unaffiliated. Independent is a political party in the state of Connecticut. So we do find some individuals who get a little confused with that. So they actually are registering to the independent party when often they really want to be unaffiliated.
Right. And if you're going to register to vote, you don't do it in the town clerk's office, though, do you?
We help out the register of voters because they're a part-time office, so people can come in and drop off their paperwork. But no, that is typically handled by the register of voters.
But you do handle absentee ballots.
Yes, we do. Yes, we
And
do.
what's involved with that? Let's say, I mean, under the current law, which I
Okay.
understand may be up for a change,
Mhm.
I mean, how am I allowed to vote in a
Okay.
municipal election without going to the polls?
Okay. Yes. So that option is called absent. Currently in the state of Connecticut, well, we'll take a step back. Based upon the last election, Connecticut did vote to have the legislature look into early voting. So that's going to be one topic that, in chatting with our new Secretary of State, she believes the legislature will take up this issue when it meets again, and it will probably be in place for the presidential election. I don't expect it. We'll see that for November 23, but we will undoubtedly see it for November 24. So that's early voting. So we'll take that off the table. It's not currently in place in the state, but it has been authorized. So absentee voting is the ability to vote before Election Day for one of 7 reasons. We do not have what's called no excuse absentee ballot voting. You must be either in the armed forces, absent from town, sickness, religious tenets, you're working at your another polling place, or due to a physical disability. So those are the reasons by which someone may vote absentee ballot.
And if I qualify under one of those reasons, I come down to your office, and what happens?
Okay. So you can come into my office. It's a 2-step process. Every voter or elector has to first fill out an absentee ballot application. We take in those applications, and then at a defined date prior to the election, whether it's a general election or a primary, then we send out the ballots. People fill them out. They can mail them back. They can return them to our office. They can drop them in the ballot box, which is located outside of Town Hall. The state, in the middle of the last election, actually just updated a new online absentee ballot application form. So you don't even have to come in to get an application. You can do it online. It was it was ambitious of the state to roll it out in the middle of election season, but it worked fairly well. That application comes right into my office, so I can process that application. It doesn't even have to be mailed in. So it was a nice feature.
That box that was outside of Town Hall where people could drop their absentee ballots, is that secure?
Yes, it is secure. There are cameras on it. It is secure.
Absolutely. And how often is it emptied from whatever people put in there?
We check it 3 times a day, and certainly by 8 o'clock every night. And ballots can be put into the ballot box up until 8 p.m. on the day of election.
How do we know that the people who put ballots in that box are voting legally? What happens when that envelope gets opened?
Okay, well, as far as to make sure they're not voting twice, well, maybe we'll take that step. Okay. When someone applies for an application for an absentee ballot, we then supply that list to the register of voters indicating that individual has voted via absentee ballot. If they go into the polling place, then it's marked as absentee. They try to confirm, we show you voting absentee. And that was actually, I don't want to get off, but that was the court case in Stamford where there was fraud, where an individual went in to vote in person. In that case, his ballot had been fraudulently filled out by a member of the party. So you go in and then we can pull absentee ballots, I should say, if someone does want to vote in person.
Have we had any of those kind of problems in Darien?
No, thankfully.
You mentioned we do not have no excuse absentee ballots right now.
Correct.
So if I just go, well, I don't know where I'm going to be on election day. Maybe I'm going to be on vacation. Maybe I'll be home. Can't I just go down and say I'm going to be out of town on election day?
Yes, you may. Yes, you may. When
What
you
if
come,
what if I'm not out of town on election day? Have I committed some sort of fraud?
you attest when you're filling out your application that well, quite honestly, you don't even have to show identification when you fill out this application. There is no identification required to vote via absentee ballot. You sign that you are who you are, but no identification is required. So you say who you are, and you also say why you need to be there, but there is no independent checking of that.
Well, how do you know that people who are applying for the absentee ballots are who they claim to be if no identification is required?
I don't.
Doesn't this open up the opportunity for fraud?
Yes.
How is that properly policed?
That's an issue for the legislature.
Okay, another conversation to come.
No,
Krista,
truly, someone shows up, they literally just ask for an absentee ballot application. We take it in and we process it.
can you ask for an absentee ballot for your wife?
You may ask for an application for your wife, but we would not give the ballot to anyone. We will hand it to the individual, or we will mail it to anybody else. We will not give anyone else a ballot. No.
Does anybody check the signature when the absentee ballot is returned to compare it against the registration card or something?
That is not, we've been told actually by the Secretary of State's office that we are not signature experts, so that is not the responsibility of the town clerk's office.
Well, a whole other conversation yet to come with the registrars and our elected officials. Krista McNamara joining us today on Inside Town Hall. She is the town clerk, and we are getting way down into the weeds of the democratic process as it happens in town. Let's segue back to, you have a lot of other things that you deal with in the town clerk's office. Let's get back to all that fun paperwork. Land records.
Yes. Okay.
What kind of land records do you have? And can I come down and take a look at the land record of a neighbor or someone else?
Yes.
Not my property?
Absolutely. All of our land records are, so you buy a home, you sell a home, you have a mortgage, your mortgage is released, there's a lien on your home, all of that paperwork gets filed on a daily basis in the town clerk's office across the state. It is filed, it is indexed, it is archived, and it is public information. Absolutely.
So I could come down and find out what a neighbor paid for his house.
Yes.
And whether he has a mortgage or not.
Correct.
Okay.
And how much the mortgage is.
Okay. We mentioned marriage certificates, civil unions, death certificates, etc. You also issue burial permits. I need a permit to get buried or to bury a loved one.
Yes, and it's interesting. You don't need the death certificate to get the burial permit, which I found. I recently came across that. I thought that was interesting. I would like to make sure I was dead before I was buried, but that yes, you do. You need a burial permit or cremation permit, and we work very closely with the local funeral homes in this process.
And that's only if I'm going to be buried in Darien, I assume.
Correct. Right.
Okay.
Right.
You also, I saw from the town website, have disinterment permits.
Yes.
You need permission to dig somebody up.
Yes.
After they're dead.
Yes.
You get a lot of those?
No, I don't recall seeing one in the year and a half I've been here.
Military discharge paperwork. You file that as well too.
Yep. Again, not
Um,
seeing many of those, but we do have those.
Okay. One I did not know about, trade name certificates. I want to start Cameron's Cupcake Castle. And I want to make sure that there's nobody that uses my my trade name,
Right.
my trademark. Maybe I could copyright it as well too. Do people come down and get that trade name certificate?
Yes, we refer to it as a DBA, or doing business as. This is often when a company is starting their business, usually a sole proprietor, small, that they go to the bank to open up their bank account. And that is what the bank requires, this documentation. So that's traditionally where it stems from. And then they want to make sure nobody else in the town has that same name. If it's a big business opening up another bank, Wells Fargo wants to open another branch, they don't file. It's just more of the smaller local companies.
And I don't even need to be an LLC or incorporated or anything like that.
Right.
Cameron's Cupcake Castle.
I like it. I like it. Talk to
Well,
David.
that was shot down by P&Z, so
Oh.
it was a hypothetical we discussed in a couple of different shows. What is a notary, and why do I have to have documents notarized?
We do have one notary in the office here who attests to the fact that the signature is the person who is signing. We offer that complimentary here in the town clerk's office, though we don't notarize documents that are being filed with us. We feel that would be a conflict of interest. There's also a notary in the first selectman's office, but it's just attest to the person signing is the person who they say they are.
There's also a notary at the Darien Library.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Blanche, I believe, does
okay.
notary work. Can notaries charge for their service?
The state of Connecticut, I believe, enables a small fee, but Darien Town Hall does not charge for the notary services. It's complimentary for residents and non-residents.
Well, we have covered everything from soup to nuts, and then back to. Have I missed anything among your many duties and responsibilities?
Yes, you missed one of the biggest ones.
What?
June 1st, dog licenses.
Oh, of course, yes. Dog licenses.
Yep.
Why do I need a dog license in Darien?
Well, first and foremost, by state statute, every dog over the age of 6 months must be licensed in the state of Connecticut. Revenue goes to the state for this process.
How much does it cost?
It is $8 and for a neuter dog and $19 for a non-spayed or neuter dog, and then $1 fee every month thereafter. About this time of year, we are seeing our animal control warden, who is under the guidance of the police department. He is the enforcement arm of non-licensed dogs. And he is sending letters now for tickets of $75 to $200 for unlicensed dogs. So
how does he know a dog is not licensed?
There's a database that we share with the animal control officer. So when he picks up a dog, if he doesn't see the tag and then he looks in the database and doesn't see the name either, he can issue a ticket.
My dog doesn't want to wear a collar. I have the tag, but he's not wearing the collar. Can I get out of jail on that one?
That would be up to Chip, but I would hope so.
Chip being the animal control.
I'm sorry. Yes, animal control officer. But the important aspect is, in conjunction with the licensing process, is also the documentation of a rabies vaccination, and that is more the practical side as to why this process occurs, is to ensure that these dogs out there do have rabies vaccinations. However, if your dog cannot receive the vaccination, please still come in to register your dog. You can always get a letter from your vet to say, the dog can't get a rabies vaccine.
We have anti-vaxxing dogs.
We may have some, but for legitimate medical reasons cannot be vaccinated. So Still get your license, but just bring the letter. But another tidbit for the viewing public is the state is looking to take over this process, actually, to bring it online in a statewide basis. So the report is due in January. There was a committee formed to look into this process. They feel there are many dogs in some of these urban settings are not being licensed in some of our bigger Bridgeports, Waterburys. So the state is looking for better compliance, so they're looking to take it over. So stay tuned. We'll see what happens.
Or what if a dog from Stanford comes across the town line and, is found in Darien? I guess that's up to Chip, the animal control
Yeah, it's
officer.
back up to Chip. Right, exactly.
Why dog licenses and not cat licenses?
Back to the legislature. They don't require licenses for cats.
Yeah, I don't think they get rabies. Or not communicable
exactly.
as well.
Exactly.
Too. I apologize for missing
That's
dog
okay.
licenses. That's a big one, I'm sure.
It is a big one.
There were a lot of people that got pets during COVID. Did you see a run on dog licenses? Did people know they have to have dog licenses?
We tried through, yes, we've seen a huge run up in people getting dogs during COVID, clearly. We've tried to be more proactive on social media, getting the word out. June 1st, again, is the beginning of the cycle. It's an annual 12-month license every June. Again, to make sure everybody does know that they have to have that license. Some people didn't know they needed one, but we're trying to get the word out. That's why I didn't want to let this go without mentioning it. So it's an important part of our business. Right now, we have almost 2,400 dogs licensed in Darien.
That number has gone up, I guess, in the last couple of years.
Yes, I'm trying to think what we saw in 2009, but it's steadily gone up. Yes.
And what if I have a puppy? Do I have to register that as a dog?
6 months. At 6 months. Yes.
It's 6 months. Okay.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Well, soup to nuts to dog licenses. I think have I missed anything? I thought I was being as comprehensive.
Dogs, vitals, RTM, elections, birth, death,
land records.
Land records, a huge part, I think. And then, of course, just the filings of all the minutes and just the keeper of the records, which was the original kind of bringing us back where the town clerk started.
And your office is open 4 days a week, Monday through Thursday?
Town hall is open Monday through Thursday from 8 a.m. to 5:15 p.m. Town hall is closed on Fridays.
And if people have questions, they can come down, and you're usually pretty helpful, aren't you? We
try to be. Yeah, we'd like to. We're here for you.
Okay, great. Well, Krista McNamara, our guest today, she's the town clerk joining us today on Inside Town Hall. And I want to thank you very much for being on the program. Thank you for the service to the town on RTM, Board of Ed, Board of Selectmen, and now as town clerk. So please give our thanks also to the hardworking members of your staff.
I really shall. Well, thank you very much, Jim, and for all you do for our community and for TV 79. It's much appreciated.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And we have to thank you, our faithful viewers, for watching yet another edition of Inside Town Hall.